Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank and introduce Hanna Lee and Dr. David Krofcheck from Health and Energy PC, located here in Battle Creek. Hanna has a master's degree in Oriental Medicine and a bachelor's degree in medical science. She has been practicing in traditional Chinese medicine since 2004. She is licensed acupuncturist in Michigan and California. Dr. Krofcheck is an acupuncturist as well. He graduated from California State University in Northridge, California in '81. He finished his internship in the Academy of Traditional Medicine, Chinese Medicine in Beijing, China, and received his diploma in 1984. Licensed acupuncturist and certified in a variety of treatment modalities. Without further ado, thank you for participating, and go ahead, Hanna.
Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to have this chance to introduce traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture today. My name is Hanna Li. From very young age, I was inspired by the TCM and acupuncture. The first teacher was my mother, who has been practicing Chinese medicine for 40 years. When I was sick, my mom always used TCM and acupuncture to treat me, and that was amazing to me. So those experiences influenced me later when I chose my profession. I love to become an acupuncturist to help my patients. What are acupuncture and the traditional Chinese medicine? Traditional Chinese medicine is 1,000 of a year old and has changed little over the centuries. Its basic concept is that a vital force of life, called qi, surges through the body. Any imbalance to qi can cause disease and illness. This imbalance is most commonly thought to be caused by an alteration in opposite and the complementary force that make up the qi. These are called yin and yang. Ancient Chinese believed that humans are microcosms of a large surrounding universe and are interconnected with nature and subject to its forces. Balance between health and disease is a key concept. TCM treatment seeks to restore its balance through the treatment specific to the individual. Acupuncture is one of the TCM methods has been used to treat various medical conditions for more than 3,000 years. Today, acupuncture is commonly incorporated in the treatment of a number of conditions, especially musculoskeletal disorders and back pain. The ancient Chinese discovered and described hundreds of acupuncture points in humans. Modern research shows that acupoints are located in the areas with a high density of free nerve endings, mast cells, small arteries, and lymphatic vessels. Stimulation at the acupoints induces the release of beta endorphins, serotonins, and other neurotransmitters, and can produce local, remote, and systemic effects. The use of acupuncture for pain relief is well supported by the modern research studies. The effects of acupuncture on internal organs and on balancing the body as a whole are less understood, and more research is necessary to fully explain this ancient therapy. Acupuncture is a safe medical procedure with a minimal unwanted side effects when performed by a qualified acupuncturist. When is acupuncture indicate? Clinical trials indicate that the acupuncture therapy can be effective as a supplemental treatment in the following conditions: musculoskeletal problems, The acupuncture can help muscle soreness, back pain, neck pain, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, degeneration, joint disease. I'm going to use some cases to explain how acupuncture helped many patients with various conditions. Case number 1. A 60-year-old female patient got acute low back pain when she putting her grandson in a car seat. She was difficult to stand up from sitting position or sit back to a chair. After one treatment, her back pain was gone. She was very amused by the result. Case number 2, a female patient flared up with a neck pain, left arm and left hand pain with a tingling sensation. She got 3 acupuncture treatments and got back much better. I also have a rheumatoid arthritis patient. She's only 23 years old, and she got the fingers, feet, and the knee pain. She also has many food sensitivities. I used the NAET and the acupuncture treatment. After 2 treatments, her joints pain was much better. She's continued to come for the maintenance. Acupuncture also can help gastrointestinal disorders such as diarrhea, indigestions, irritable bowel syndromes, chronic colic, gastric ulceration. Also help neurological disorders, including neuropathy, Meniere's disease, seizures, facial paralysis, post-stroke symptoms. I have a patient who was having Meniere's disease for many years. He had been suffering from severe dizziness, vomiting for 3 days in every month. He also suffering from frequent headache, diarrhea for many years. Since start to get acupuncture treatment, he has no more episodes happen. He comes twice a month for 4 years now. Acupuncture also can help emotional issues like depression, anxiety. I have a patient, he suffered from the depression for many years. After he got acupuncture treatments once a week for 5 weeks, combined with the herb supplement, he got much better, and now he comes when he needs it. We have many anxiety patients. This case is little special. This patient after got the COVID-19 infection, and after he healed from COVID-19, he developed the insomnia and the anxiety. Those symptoms was related with the COVID-19. After an AET and the acupuncture treatment, he can sleep well and the anxiety was gone. In another case, a post-stroke patient coming for help with a nerve pain on his leg and arm. After 1 month treatment, his symptom got much better, and he said his anxiety got better too. He was appreciate that good side effect of acupuncture. Acupuncture also can help with many other chronic conditions like asthma, behavioral problems, hypo or hyperthyroidism, infertility, sleep apnea, skin problems. I recently have a sleep apnea patient. This patient diagnosed with a sleep apnea 2 years ago, and he started using sleep machine at the time, but it didn't help him. He wakes up at midnight and can back to sleep. He could only get the 2 or 3 hours of sleep a day. After 6-week treatment, he can sleep 6 to 7 hours straight for 5 nights in a week. He is very satisfied with the result. Now he comes every other week to continue the treatment. What physiological effects are induced by the acupuncture. Pain relief, promotion of a microcirculation, regulation of a gastrointestinal motility, anti-inflammatory effects, hormone and reproductive regulation, immunoregulation, antifebrile effects. Acupuncture is a safe medical procedure when performed by qualified acupuncturists. Very few negative side effects have been reported in the clinical cases. However, acupuncture is not a replacement for the conventional medicine. Does acupuncture hurt? More than 95% of patients tolerate acupuncture very well and experience profound relaxation. Typically, acupuncture will produce a tingling or heavy sensation at the acupoint. Thank you for having me today, and I hope my presentation helped you understand TCM and acupuncture better. Thank you very much.
Yep, and over from there. Yep, and you already got a pretty good introduction of me, and I've been doing acupuncture for over 30 years. And I've gotten, well, I did my doctoral dissertation on bioelectricity and acupuncture. So a lot of people are just wondering kind of how acupuncture works and how it can do so many things. And we're gonna go to this, let's see, Martha, should I click on this or you're gonna do that from your end? I'll do it from here. Okay, so it shows how to treat long COVID symptoms, like in hospital symptom settings. It's more like that. So this might be kind of interesting for people. Bigger. Uh-oh. I guess we didn't need that commercial, but there we go. Great.
Medical experts are on the lookout for COVID symptoms that stick around. Recent data shows that more than 1 in 3 patients end up with what's called long COVID. That's when symptoms like fatigue and brain fog stick around 3 to 6 months after the illness. Sarah spoke with one woman who, with the help of finally found her way through it.
When Shar Harner got COVID last December, she lost her taste and smell and thought flu-like symptoms at home, but she managed.
I kept working the whole time. I'd have to take a nap here and there when I had a 20-minute break. But yeah, it wasn't that bad. I was short of breath, tired, but I thought it had a lot to do with winter.
In March, now fully vaccinated, she went back to the gym and a favorite Zumba class.
I felt like I was having a heart attack. I shortness of breath, heart palpitations, just overwhelmed by it. That was not me at all.
After a round of steroids and a battery of tests on her heart and lungs, she found University Hospital's COVID recovery clinic in June.
Everything was coming back just great. I was super healthy and not feeling healthy at all.
That's when doctors sent her to UH Connor Whole Health, her first introduction to acupuncture.
I hadn't tried anything like acupuncture before.
A lot of my COVID long haul patients are coming in saying that they feel shortness of breath, but also fatigue, body aches, headaches, insomnia, anxiety. These are things that we often treat with acupuncture. And luckily, as we've been applying acupuncture to the long haul cases, we've been seeing a good response from patients.
Christine Kaiser is part of a nationwide group of healthcare providers meeting regularly to share best practices for managing long-haul COVID. While it's early, they're finding the ancient healing form a new cure.
I'm very excited to see more research done on acupuncture and COVID long haul and see how we can help and support these patients and build an evidence base for that. I know people are usually worried about getting needles, but most patients really enjoy it and find it very comfortable.
Shar was so comfortable the first time she fell asleep. Now COVID recovered, she's continued weekly sessions.
By the third session, I woke up, I feel like myself again.
Well, these therapies can address the whole person, so they can be targeted to unique combinations of symptoms like many long haulers are facing. You know, Russ, the National Institutes of Health is spending more than $1 billion right now to look into and study long COVID as an emerging chronic disease. There is just still so much they don't know.
I'm glad she's feeling better.
Yes,
With the ordeal. All right, thank you, sir.
All right.
Are you looking for a career that's meaningful, where you can grow professionally and
Let's see, how do we
personally,
get out of
where the
here?
people you work for and with are like family? Go to danburyseniorliving.com and join.
Okay. So that was kind of interesting. And we've treated many patients who've had some of these long haul symptoms. They come in and they usually respond pretty well to the acupuncture, and also treated people who've reacted to the vaccinations and some of those side effects too. So, you know, we're always working on the whole body. And so let's go on here. And so how does acupuncture work in scientifically too? After this presentation, you will be able to amaze your friends and tell them, I've learned exactly how acupuncture works. So just remember this, acupuncture stimulates the body's natural healing process. So this is the most amazing God-sized miracle, I think, and it's how our bodies were designed. And acupuncture just kind of stimulates that, gives it a little extra boost, and speeds up the healing process. So there is more research done on acupuncture than any other alternative therapy. The advent of sophisticated research equipment has made possible the discovery of the mechanisms of acupuncture. We have found that acupuncture points have distinctive anatomical and electrical characteristics. So the body produces a natural response to being pierced by a foreign object. And because of these characteristics, acupuncture can enhance and regulate the body's natural responses, which include pain relief, stimulation of the immune system, and healing. So Hanna's introduced us to the meridians, which are the energy pathways, and the acupuncture points, which are the meridian regulators. So for many years, scientists have been searching for the elusive meridian tissue without success. And on our website, we have articles, scientific base of acupuncture. It has references and more complete. And we're just going to kind of sum up things here for this part. Deke Kendall, so he's a doctorate of oriental medicine and a PhD in psychophysiology. So he's written scientific journal articles explaining in detail neurologically and biochemically how acupuncture works. And he was assigned to be my advisor for my doctoral dissertation, bioelectricity and acupuncture. And when you put together the neurological and biochemical and then add the bioelectrical aspects of acupuncture, you get really a better, more complete picture. So we'll run through these. This is a very, summed up thing of neurological and biochemical. So neurologically, the A delta and C fibers carry signals into the spinal cord and upward to the brain. The importance of the fibers, in addition to mediating acupuncture, is the connections to the internal organs through the dorsal horns of the spinal cord. Then biochemically, many active substances, including bradykinin, histamine, leukotriene, are important for initiating responses at the acupuncture points. So the serotonin, endorphins, and enkephalins, and substance P are important for mediating the central nervous system effects of acupuncture. Now, we get to the bioelectrical. So electrical energy naturally occurring in the body has been found to stimulate regeneration and healing. So they've done these experiments where they cut limbs off of frogs and rats. and put a very small negative voltage at the stump, and they were able to regrow the limbs in frogs and rats. So they also found that resistant bone fractures were actually healed in humans by electric treatment too. So they have these patented FDA instruments now that do that. And we also know that the ions of radioactive isotopes, when they're injected into acupuncture points, they migrate specifically along the meridians. So they don't go the nerve, they don't go along the arteries or veins or muscles, they go right along those meridians. So there's something actually there. And the electrical resistance of an acupuncture point is lower than the surrounding tissue. So you can get an ohmmeter and just find acupuncture points yourself. So that's kind of interesting. And so, but recently in South Korea, they've discovered the actual meridian tissue. So it is very thin and transparent, and that's why they couldn't see it during autopsies until a special dye was used. And then they discovered that this tissue, it actually conducts electricity and light energy. So we're kind of have these biooptic, things running all through our body, giving all kinds of information to all parts of our body. So, okay, so we go to the next slide. Yeah, and we explain that one, sorry. Here we go to the invisible rainbow here. So this is just a book. It's written actually by a physicist explaining acupuncture. Okay. The back cover states, Zhang presents proof from the field of natural science and succeeds in demonstrating that the whole material world does not exist in disjunction, but is wrapped together, expressed through an ocean of electromagnetic waves that together determine the functional course of all living beings. So the author asks, how would a blind scientist discover or research a rainbow? And he also kind of gives the illustration of chemicals, like in our body, the biochemicals. They act kind of like postal communication. So it's kind of slow. And then the nerves, kind of more like a telegraph or telephone communication. So it actually goes from one point to the other. Get some extra music. I'll try to override that. I'm not sure if that's coming from us. Okay. Oh, yeah. Here, let's close that one down. It likes to come back up. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So, yeah, so the chemicals, kind of like postal communication, nerves like a telegraph or telephone, and the biofield kind of works like a wireless or radio communication. So the terms like biofield and morphogenic field are being used much more in science. For example, they have discovered that embryonic development is not solely based on genes. So every cell in your body has the same genes. It has a copy of everything there. So how does a foot utilize the genes to say, okay, I want to be a foot here, I want to be a leg here, I want to be heart tissue here. So if by utilizing that biofield, it can tell the body where everything's supposed to go and activate the correct genes in the right place. So that's kind of interesting. And we've got the next slide, which is similar name, The Invisible Rainbow, and subtitled A History of Electricity and Life. And so this author builds the case for electrical smog or EMF, increasing the number of heart disease, diabetes, and cancer cases. Interestingly, Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell both developed type 1 diabetes after working with electricity. So at the time, diabetes was extremely rare, and especially the type 1. So he brings up also the research of Robert O. Becker, who discovered that the myelin covering of the nerves is actually a liquid crystal semiconductor. So our body's proper operation depends on many electric currents, magnetic and electric fields. The increasing EMFs in our environment can cause disharmony in our bodies and bioelectrical fields. And one of the effects is to lower our body's oxygen levels. And we know cancer cells and many pathogens cannot survive in the presence of oxygen. So when you lower that, you're decreasing our resistance in general and increasing the chance of cancer. So this is happening as we're getting more and more electrical fields and what he calls EMF smog. Okay, we're going to cover some of the NAET, stands for Nambudripad Allergy Elimination Technique. And that was discovered by Dr. Devi Nambudripad in 1983. It is a non-invasive, drug-free natural solution to alleviate allergies and sensitivities, using a blend of selective energy balancing, testing, and things like acupuncture and nutrition, kinesiology. We do muscle response testing that gives us a lot of really good information. So the basic nutrients are treated during the first few treatments. Chemicals, environmentals, and vaccinations and pathogens can be treated later after those are covered. And so we've had really good results using this and helping people who we wouldn't just be able to help with acupuncture and herbs. So we have some really good stories about those things. And let's see, we have, oh yeah, that was NAT. And our next one is a list of things that kind of modern health challenges, including EMF, which I kind of described, stands for electromotive force. And smoking, we have very successful, 80% successful with 2 consecutive days treatments. And pesticides, they're kind of interesting because, well, actually, I think maybe you could look at those, and we're really would encourage you to call us with like any questions that you have on this or anything, because you know, the acupuncture works slightly different than the other Western medicine, and it doesn't, you don't have to use drugs or surgery. So you know, the ancient Chinese, they were only paid as long as their patients stayed well. So they got really good at, they wanted to keep getting paid, so they would do things preventatively so they wouldn't get paid. So after we get people well, we can kind of help them keep well better and tuned up. So I'm not sure if there's any questions. We can maybe anybody from that. I could talk all day on these things on the chart right here, and I can do that. If anyone comes up with a question, just interrupt me here. Okay, so I think we got through the pesticides. It's actually interesting because they now use other chemicals they put in there so they're not washed off with the rain. Of course, you go home, put them under the water, it's not longer water soluble, so it's washed off. It's not washed off. So you can use solutions of vinegar or something in the health food store, you spray on it, and then you rinse it off. And then our immune system, 70% comes from our gut. And of course, the pesticides now, actually, they say it doesn't affect people, but it actually kills the good bacteria in the gut, which that's where you get your 70% of your immune system from. So that lowers our immune system, and all of these other yeast, candida, fungus, parasites that can also cause leaky gut too. So let's see.
Dr. Krofcheck?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I think we're kind of running close to time, but then other things like halide are actually chlorine, fluoride, and bromine, things that we have in our water and environment. And anyway, so I think we're coming up on our time, and I just want to, urge anybody who has questions about acupuncture in general. We've helped so many people without the side effects of surgery and drugs. So give it a try. And we're here for your questions. If you can just give us our office a call. 4 and 5-star reviews. Amazon customers most better. Yeah, I think that's that video playing in the background. Medical experts are on the lookout for it likes to do that. Okay, so thank you so much for having us, and just wishing you good health, and give us a call if we can help, or a question about your health. We'd be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Crawford. I really appreciate you participating. And if there is any questions, you can email me to martha.kearns@DLA, and I'll be sure to send you the questions to Dr. Crawford and Krofcheck, sorry.
That's okay.
So I really appreciate your time and your presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye. Now we have, I'm sorry, I'm a mess right now.
Dr. Ryan Ball.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Ryan, are you there?
Yep,
I
I'm
have
here.
Ryan here.
Hello, hey, I'm here.
Ryan is a Michigan State University, has a Bachelor's of Science in Kinesiology, Doctor of Chiropractor, a 4-year program of education that includes 3 separate clinical residencies culminating in 5 sets of national board to become a licensed. Diplomat to the American Board of Anti-Aging, I like that, medicine. Advanced fellow in metabolic, nutritional, and functional medicine. Dr. Ball is a published research author, and his work includes a paper on help me with this one, insomnia?
Anosmia.
Thank you. The inability to smell in a patient who also had headaches and vertigo. I really appreciate you being with us today. And without further ado, Dr. Ryan Ball.
Hello, hey, how's it going, everybody? Thanks for having me on here. I really appreciate it. So today, this presentation is going to be all for you. I'm going to do very little about what I do. Everything is going to be useful for yourself immediately today, hopefully. And so we'll just
Ryan, I think you muted yourself.
mute. Okay, yeah, let's just stay unmuted. Thank you. So yeah, this slide basically amounts to, please listen to me because I'm going to help you. But like I said before, if you missed it, everything's going to be useful for you today. It's not going to be about the business. So George Washington University's medical school is where I got my advanced fellowship. My diploma in anti-aging medicine was credentialed by them as well. I've done hormone work through Datis Karazian, who is a research fellow at Harvard. I've done immunology work through Sam Yannick, who is a teacher at UNC's medical school. So I've tried to kind of get, a broad spectrum of information. So I'm going to teach you about exercise and movement. I'm going to teach you about stress and cortisol, and then I will teach you about falling asleep and staying asleep. And then hopefully some of the things that we talk about are going to be helpful for you right away. The problem with exercise and movement in today's world is that most of the ways that you exercise are actually aimed at training you to do a sport. They're not aimed at making you a complete human. And what I mean by that is just healthy in every way so that you can do the things that you want to do and not get hurt or injured doing that. You certainly shouldn't get injured picking a feather up off the floor. And I know that some of you know what I'm talking about. But even less than that, you should be a lot more sturdy and resilient than that. The human body was designed to be sturdy and resilient. If it's not, then it's because you're not doing the things that you need to, and it's not your fault. You don't know what the things that you need to do are. And it's because most of exercise, we all know exercise is healthy, but we look at exercise and most of it is to train you. So if you're jogging, you're training to jog. You're not training to be a normal human. When you're exercising, you're weightlifting, you're bench pressing, you're training to bench press. You're not necessarily training healthy joints or healthy movement. If you do have sports goals, then of course do the activities that will help you with those sports goals. But if you just want to be healthy, then there's a much different approach. So what's appropriate for every human who isn't training for a sport event? I would say you want to use the whole body in conjunction with itself. So basically what it amounts to is this. When you are a baby, you will develop normal movement patterns, and nobody taught you how to do that. That is in your DNA. You are genetically already programmed to go along a certain neurological pattern to become a normal human. When people have good success with different exercises from a health perspective, a lot of times what they're doing is they are just engaging in one of these neurological principles without knowing it. So some people that I've studied under have basically, it's a team of a neurologist, a chiropractor, a physical therapist, and then a trainer. And the trainer is actually the brains of the operation, believe it or not. But they've taken all these exercises and broken it down to, there's really just a couple neurological principles, and as long as you practice those, you're going to activate those systems. And so, yoga has a lot of them. So the 5 movements are breathe, nod, and what I mean by that is head control, rock, roll, and crawl. So the first one is breathe, diaphragm breathing without taking in too much oxygen. So deep breathing is something that we talk about in the United States. Yogis in India don't recommend deep breathing. They actually recommend breath holding more often. Anyone who's familiar with Buteyko breathing, that's a practice of basically trying to breathe less. It actually ends up being a lot better for you to not overbreathe and not mouth breathe. We've always heard, don't be a mouth breather, or that person's a mouth breather, or we've intuitively known that mouth breathing was bad for you. Farmers can tell that their cows are sick when the cows are mouth breathing. Overbreathing is a lot like overeating. You lose tolerance to carbon dioxide, and there's quite a few other processes that happen. We won't get too much into that, but overall, you should be activating your diaphragm when you breathe, like they talk about, but you shouldn't be taking in excess oxygen. And so how do you do that? Well, you don't need to meditate. You do not need to sit down. You don't need to do anything special, because when you think about it, before we knew about all these different practices, before we knew about meditation and things like that, we were just running around and hunting and sleeping, kind of, and before cities and towns and all these things. And so basically what I'm saying is a caveman would not meditate, but a caveman would diaphragmatically breathe all the time, and they would just do it naturally. And the way that you do it is this: you don't need to, I've had lots of patients with anxiety who are like, oh, I can't meditate because then I get even more anxious. Yeah, I don't think that cavemen meditated either. And so there's a reason. I kind of already went through that. Okay, so I'll go over, I think I'm missing my breathing slide. So I'll go over this with you just so it's not going to be on a slide. So try to, basically the way that you should breathe all the time is go ahead and swallow your spit. If you swallow your spit, your tongue will go to the roof of your mouth. Now that the tongue is on the roof of your mouth, you actually have a better brain to body connection. One peer-reviewed study showed that knee extension strength, so just straightening out your leg, that strength increased 30% when people had their tongue on the roof of their mouth. That's an easy paper to find. It's for free on PubMed. And so put your tongue on the roof of your mouth. That is where your tongue should be all day, every day, unless you are eating or you're speaking. So unless you're eating or speaking, you should have your tongue on the roof of your mouth. Now, while your tongue's on the roof of your mouth, breathe through your nose. And you really don't have to super hard think about breathing into your diaphragm when you have your tongue on the roof of your mouth and you're breathing through your nose. It happens much easier. And that's really, before we, got really unhealthy in our society, that's how cavemen used to breathe. They used to breathe through their nose into their diaphragm, but not excessively. And the nose actually naturally restricts the amount of oxygen that you're going to take in, which is a good thing. So it's just like those exercise masks that they take so that you can't breathe as well. You have a natural exercise mask. You don't need to pay $60 for a mask to wear so that you can run and have even a worse time. You can definitely just breathe through your nose, and you're going to automatically get a healthier diaphragmatic response to breath. Automatically, you're going to breathe in less oxygen, and both of those things are healthy for you. Sometimes one person asked me, they said, well, what about hyperbaric oxygen? My stance on hyperbaric oxygen is that the benefits don't come from oxygen. The benefits come from the increase in pressure and leveraging the bariatric reflex. And so anyone who wants to have a chat about that, totally fine. We can. I did a review of the literature on hyperbaric oxygen therapy for a doctor. It was, about 50 pages long. I don't use hyperbaric in my office, but I know a lot about it. And my stance is that it's actually the pressure, not the oxygen. I think that I can hang my hat on some good research for that. Before we go too far, I'm not trying to poo-poo on any type of exercise. If you like it, obviously any type of exercise you're doing is better than couch potato. So I just want to say that. I'm just trying to, if you don't really like the exercise you're doing, if you don't really like going to the gym or having to go out and do stuff, most of these things can be done in just a small room with no equipment. So breathe. Head nods, this reverts to head control. Now, the most important thing here is that when you're doing head control exercises, you're leading with the eyes first. And so eyes first and then head movement. So you let the eyes, control the head. Easiest way to do that is just, instead of just moving your eyes in a habit, because it's the exercise, actually look where you're looking, see what you're looking at. And so a good way to do that is just, you could literally just stand. You can look down with your eyes and then bring your head down as far as you can. Look up with your eyes and look up as far as you can. You can go diagonal. You can look behind you. If you're standing and you're trying to look behind you, you'll find that you do the eyes first, then the head, and then your whole spine will come around with it. And that's the correct order to do things. Eyes always first. That's very healthy for the nervous system. Rolling is the next thing. And so easiest and most pain, any of these things, if they cause pain, do not do them, because this is not physical therapy where you work through the pain. It's we're leveraging the nervous system, and pain will tell the nervous system that it's not safe. And we want the nervous system to feel safe. So if you feel pain, you could try moving more slowly, and sometimes that will take away the pain. So you can do the same range of motion, but more slowly, and you will have less pain. If that doesn't quite work for you, you could go, not as far, and kind of tease like the very top 1% of the pain, but don't go into it. Never move into pain, especially with these things. So rolling, lay on the ground. You lay on your back. You use your right arm and your head to roll over to your left, and you try to twist at the waist. You try not to be in just a straight barrel roll. And then use the same arm and your head to move back, and use your eyes as well. Then you do the other way, and then you can do the same thing with your legs. When you do your legs, be sure to lift your knee up and then roll over, and then be sure to, you know, kick your leg backwards to roll back over. Oh, they're out of order, I see. Rocking. Everyone has seen babies do rocking. Basically what you're in is a baby crawl position, and then while trying to maintain the round in your lower back, you're going to try to get your buttock to your ankles. And so you're kind of going back and forth. It's kind of like you're on your haunches, and then you're back up into the baby crawl position. So that's a great thing for the brain as well. But it's really, even though it's not a cross crawl movement, obviously it actually is neurologically. But you're tying that shoulder to that opposite hip. So babies do this, and eventually babies will start standing, and then they'll do a little drop squat where they try to drop as fast as they can and then stop themselves. That's just another type of rocking. But the most pain-free way is to be in the baby crawl position and do it from there. You can do it with active toes and with your feet relaxed. So use it, you know, with your toe, sole of your feet on the ground or top of your feet on the ground, either way. And then crawling. Crawling is the easiest actually to explain. You just baby crawl, head up, you're rounding your low back, and then opposite knee, opposite hand. So that cross crawl is very good for the nervous system. Once again, that's tying the shoulder to the hip, as well as you're inputting very good posture. So some people out there are saying you should have a neutral head position. That doesn't make sense because we're all sitting with our head forward at computers or whatever as we sit. You know, you can't return a head forward position to neutral by practicing in neutral. So the head is forward, so you practice in the head back position to meet in the middle, which is neutral. Once again, easiest way to belly breathe, swallow your spit, tongue in the roof of your mouth, and then just breathe through your nose. What I would say is there's 5 of them. Just do 2 minutes of each, once or twice a day. Twice a day would be even better, but once a day is just fine. Walking is technically crawling too, neurologically. For your brain will look at walking and say that's crawling, as long as you're walking right. Most people don't walk right. Most people don't keep their eyes on the horizon, so that's going to be part of your head control. But a lot of people do not swing their arms backwards. And so that's a whole side of the nervous system that you're not activating. Walking is the exercise that humans should be able to maintain strength from. But if you don't walk correctly, you're not going to get the same neurological activation. Let's see. So you can try to, you know, if you want little ideas for each of these, you can go to Original Strength on YouTube. I'm certified by them, but I have no financial stake in their company at all. I am not paid by them at all. I just really believe in what they do, and I give them a lot of credit because they basically put it all for free on YouTube. So those are the 4 I was talking about: the neurologist, trainer, the chiropractor, and the physical therapist. The trainer is the one who's on the videos for the most part. That's Tim Anderson, and he really figured it out. I think he's gotten it down to these principles, and I've seen just amazing results. The physical therapist who teaches for them, he teaches at a physical therapy school, and he actually himself does not do he doesn't do any regular physical therapy anymore. He just does this stuff now, and that's how good of the results he's seeing are. Stress and cortisol. So there's tons of wrong information on cortisol. So if you go on Google, basically just know that you're going to get fed the wrong information. And it does matter. Sometimes theory doesn't matter and the results are the same, and the patient doesn't care how it works. They just want to be better. And that makes sense to me. And I'm not big on arguing semantics or anything. In this case, not knowing the theory does result in wrong treatment. And so adrenal fatigue is a misnomer. Chronic stress does eventually cause you to flatline your cortisol, but that's not how it happened. Adrenal fatigue is not the explanation for that. Adrenals don't get tired. We know that adrenals don't get tired because when we induce lab rats to produce nonstop adrenal hormone, they can produce it for months. And the adrenals never stop producing hormone. In adrenal tumors, the adrenals will never stop producing hormone. It never gets tired. The adrenals do not store cortisol. Every time that you get stressed, the adrenals will release adrenaline. And then about 30 minutes later, you'll get cortisol into the system. That's because it produced it per stressful event. So the idea that you ran out of cortisol is absolutely insane too. It's just a misunderstanding of how it actually works. So adrenal fatigue is a misnomer. Adrenals can't get tired or fatigued or run out of hormone. What is actually happening is when you get chronic stress, you have a high cortisol and a few bad things happen. You stop converting T4 to T3. And as soon as that happens, you're going to shut off a certain percentage of your insulin receptors. A couple studies have shown it's around 20%. You're also going to flatline your testosterone, your estrogen, and your human growth hormone. You're going to have mast cell leakage into the gut. That's histamine, and that can worsen or cause new leaky gut. And then you're going to get MMPs, which cause pain. That's just a chemical that you put that goes throughout the body and it will cause some pain for you. So what happens to prevent all these things, and because cortisol is causing your heart to race, your brain tells the adrenals to stop producing hormone. And so really the adrenals don't get tired. You're getting a down regulation by the brain to save your heart and your body. And so why is that important? Taking adrenal cortex, having a medical doctor prescribe you cortisol as a hormone replacement therapy, which does happen from time to time. Those aren't good strategies. They're a great way to make somebody feel better temporarily and not a good way to fix the problem, because essentially the brain is in a down state. Pregnenolone steal, that's the idea that there's three parts of the adrenal. What we know is there's three parts of the adrenals. One produces aldosterone, one produces sex hormones, one produces adrenal fatigue, or cortisol rather. And the idea is that when you have high cortisol for a long time, the part that will make cortisol will steal pregnenolone so it can make even more, and then you'll produce less sex hormone. Chronic stress, like I said, does result in low sex hormones, but that is not the way again, because zones in the adrenals do not share pregnenolone. They produce it inside of the mitochondria of the cell. So not only do zones in the adrenals not share pregnenolone, literally cells within each zone do not share pregnenolone. And the big one is cortisol is anti-inflammatory and anti-obesity. What? Google said it's pro-inflammatory and pro-obesity. No, have you ever heard of cortisone or prednisone? Most of you have, and they're anti-inflammatory steroids. They're designed off of cortisol because cortisol is anti-inflammatory. When you get stressed out, you produce NF-kappa B, which is inflammation, and cortisol, and in a normal stress response, they will cancel each other out. They'll meet up and cancel, and then that's the end of your stress response. When you're stressed for a very long period of time, just like a person who eats too many carbs and gets insulin resistance, a person will get cortisol resistance from too much stress over time. When you get cortisol resistance, the cortisol will not cancel out the inflammation. And so that state is quite inflammatory. And since cortisol causes you to release stores from your fat cells, obviously that is pro weight loss. When you get cortisol resistance, it can no longer signal that. And so that's a very pro-obesity and pro-inflammatory state. So some people, after they've had their cortisol flattened by the brain, actually need cortisol to come up so they can start losing weight again and feel normal and have energy throughout the day. Because cortisol is supposed to be high in the morning because it's your energy throughout the day. Google's done a really bad job of attacking cortisol. And some people need more. Some people do need less. There's a lot of people who need less. But some people need more, and just understanding that in the first place makes a whole difference. Like I said, theory doesn't usually affect results, but this time it does. So what can you do for stress for free? The first thing is we've already covered breathing. You need to activate your diaphragm every time you breathe. So anytime you're not eating or speaking, you should be breathing through your nose with your tongue on the roof of your mouth. And this is an anti-stress state. You're going to be activating the rest and digest side of your nervous system by activating that diaphragm. And you don't need a deep breathe to activate it. Once again, you just need it to activate. You need to not chest breathe. Slow exercise. So the breathing and head nods, and especially the baby crawling, is very nice. And baby crawling, that horizontal position actually makes you belly breathe a little better even. Lots of people say that the baby crawling is cathartic. I will say that high intensity interval training, if you're high cortisol, that type of exercise is not for you. You should start off with something slow, like the original strength, or maybe, if you're already comfortable with yoga, you could keep up with yoga. You could do Qigong. I think what's cool about Qigong is when you look at, some of the main ones like 8 Treasures or something like that, which is one of the more popular ones. You can see that you get the breathing, and that's well established before you even start Qigong practice, but then you do have the head nods and the standing rolling kind of, and then lots of different types of rocking and cross crawl kind of movements, or cross midline movements at least. So I think that I really like Qigong. Personally, I like it about as much as I like yoga. I kind of go back and forth. Other things to avoid cortisol: avoid artificial light at night, especially avoid blue light. So all screens are blue light, especially phones. So the farther away from your eyes, the better, even though it's still not ideal. Most people aren't going to avoid all artificial light at night. But if you just refuse to avoid it, then invest in some blue light blocker glasses. And I put this in capital letters just so that you guys understand that the clear blue light blocker glasses that are just clear, that you can see every color through, are not effective. They even send you a little test, and you look through it and you can see it makes the blue line disappear. That's actually purple. That's actually violet. So it looks blue on the paper, but no glasses that are clear are actually blue light blocking. They're just blocking a lighter type of violet that looks blue. The most effective ones are red. Orange ones are also effective. I find the orange ones you can still see a lot of colors through, so I like the orange ones. But I mean, for very cheap, you can get red ones for $8 or $9. The orange ones can be about $30. Still not too bad, but avoiding screens at night is always good. And then falling asleep or staying asleep. So if you have trouble falling asleep, that's a cortisol problem 95% of the time. If there's no pain involved, because pain can prevent people from sleeping, obviously, but if you have trouble falling asleep, that's a cortisol problem. And we kind of already went through all that. Trouble staying asleep, actually, though, is it's a sugar problem. It's a reactive hypoglycemia problem. So, you're reactive hypoglycemic if you struggle to go 5 or 6 hours without eating. So if you are, getting hangry or low energy or headaches or jittery or something 5 or 6 hours after eating, then you are reactive hypoglycemic, and you are getting inflamed when that happens. So, people who are reactive hypoglycemic, I know that sometimes I've heard people do intermittent fasting to cure that. At the same time, some people do intermittent fasting and it never fixes it, and those people are getting a little too inflamed. So, those people who want to start intermittent fasting, maybe you slowly ease into that. At the same time, maybe you just fix your reactive hypoglycemia before you start that. Typically, when I'm working with patients who are reactive hypoglycemic, I will have them, it's not ideal to eat throughout the day, but for them, they just have to temporarily until we get over that hump to where they can get, their frequency of meals down. Staying asleep. So don't go very long without eating, because you are getting inflamed. Your blood sugar is getting way too low. And then you're going to use about 5 different hormones to recover that. And if your cortisol is flatlined, most of it's going to be adrenaline, and you're not going to be able to sleep. You're going to get jittery. But T3, adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, human growth hormone, all of these will raise blood sugar. At some point, your blood sugar is nice and high, and then you're going to have overactive insulin to bring it overly down, and then you're reactive. So even some people can have insulin resistance and reactive hypoglycemia, even though it seems like those two things would be very opposite. Biggest thing with sleep is never get sleep anxiety. So if you're the type of person who they wake up in the middle of the night and they're like, oh no, I'm never gonna get back to sleep, you just need to stop that. And I know that's easier said than done. But never get sleep anxiety. That's a simple statement. Definitely more complicated than that, but I mean, a lot of people can, when they think about it, when they think about this sentence, it actually, just hearing that actually kind of gives them a new perspective on it, and they can kind of work on that and move in the right direction. Some people may need some sleep therapy or something like that. There's one sleep, what's that?
Sorry, I feel like echo.
There's one sleep book that I won't call out, I won't point my finger at it, but if you go on Google and you look up sleep health, it is the one that's bought more than any other. And essentially, every sleep therapist that I've ever talked to has basically, said that that book has caused more problems than it's solved. And it's because the book reads like you're going to get horrible diseases if you don't get 8 hours of sleep per night. Like you're going to get cancer if you don't get 8 hours of sleep tonight. The biggest longevity study, or the biggest study on sleep in terms of longevity, showed that 6.5 to 7.5 hours were better. So we're optimal. So the idea that you have to get 8 hours, it's not, if you're not getting 8 hours, don't worry. People who read the book, they're like, oh no, I'm getting 7 hours. I'm gonna, have these things happen to me. Worrying is way worse than sleeping. But yeah, that's essentially the presentation. One thing that I would recommend if you do have trouble waking up, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and then you can't get back to sleep for an hour or so, or even longer. One thing you can try for free at home is before you go to bed, eat a piece of cold starch or a lean protein. And so you could do, a piece of chicken breast, not a big one, but a piece of chicken breast. I know most people say don't eat before sleep, but this is for a particular reason. So you eat maybe less than half a palm size or third of a palm size of chicken breast, or white rice that's cold, or any type of rice that's cold, or sweet potato that's cold. When the starches are cold, they become resistant starches. I know it's kind of weird, but basically they will move through more slowly and you'll get a slower drip of sugar. There's a lot of studies that show that that's true. I don't know. I don't really get how it doesn't just do the same thing once it warms up. And then sirloin or chicken breast or some type of lean protein will also be a slow drip for you.
I like that idea.
Yeah, just before bed. And I like cold sweet potatoes because I think they're tastier than hot sweet potatoes. So I just make a bunch and put it in the fridge, and you just pull one out and eat one whenever you want to. And then so I'm Dr. Ryan Ball. I do functional medicine in Portage, Michigan. Most of my practice is autoimmunity. Although I've had a little bit of everything. Hormones and neurotransmitter stuff. I've kept my own autoimmune condition in remission for 16 years. So no sorry about that. So
well, thank
no
you, Ryan.
medicine,
I really appreciate you being with us today.
Absolutely.
And if anyone has questions about Ryan information, you can email me your questions, and I'll be sure to send you Ryan's information. Thank you, Ryan.
Yep, definitely.
Bye. Well, today we're going to have Chris Walden. I'd like to introduce him. He is the owner of Walden Arms, LLC in Battle Creek, Michigan. He is a Marine. He was active duty from 1994 to 2000, and from 2000 to 2002 in the active reserves. He is certified in so many letters. Certified as an instructor by the NRA, the USCCA, Alefei. So he continued to pursue his passion for self-defense by attending training and getting certified in various tactics and techniques. Thank you. Gracias, Chris. And he's going to be talking about how to be ready and how to stay ready on situational awareness. Thank you, Chris.
All right, Colonel, good morning. Martha, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. Today, we're going to talk about something that's really kind of near and dear to my heart. And we're going to talk about personal defense and personal security, how to keep yourself safe at all times. So the big thing that we're going to start off kind of talking about is Colonel Jeff Cooper's 4 conditional codes of situational awareness. Now, for those of you who don't know, again, Colonel Cooper, United States Marine Corps, firearms and personal protection service, done tons and tons of training all over the world. The first thing I want to talk about are the 4 color codes of situational awareness. Using mental planning to avoid danger, not looking like an easy target, what to do when attacked, tools, methods, the aftermath, and any questions. So the first thing that most people are in condition white. So condition white is what I typically consider condition oblivious. White is you're walking around much like the person in this photo with their headphones on, their earbuds. I teach at the community college here locally, and tons of times we see students walking around, even the parking lot, dangerously with their earphones on, their Beats or whatever else, not paying attention. If you want a good example of this, go to Myers, go to any shopping center, and just sit there in your car and watch people come out and think about what a potential easy target they are. So this is a very, very, very dangerous condition. This is how most people get caught flat-footed or in a really, really bad situation. So we're going to talk about here in a second about some easy ways to combat some of this condition white or condition oblivious. Condition yellow. Condition yellow is the minimum state of awareness that you should be in anytime you're out in public. And condition yellow is just kind of a heightened sense of awareness. It's not necessarily a paranoia. It's just paying attention to things like people in your workspace, in your bubble. And for some people, that bubble can be 21 feet away. Some people can be 50 feet away. When you go into restaurants, looking for things like who's potentially having a problem, especially if you go into places that serve any kind of alcoholic beverages. For example, if you go into Chili's, which is a place that sometimes my family and I will go. The first thing that I do when I walk into Chili's is, number one, when I walk in the front door, I'm scanning the left side of Chili's, and not to pick on Chili's, but the left side of Chili's, when you walk in, that's the bar area. And that's typically where most of your problems are going to originate. I'm not saying that Chili's has any issues, but I'm just saying that most people who have a couple too many cocktails are going to start to have problems. And then I'm kind of scanning around the rest of the room. I'm looking for entrances and I'm looking for exits. I'm looking for potential ways out. And then I'm looking, scanning the family dining, and I'm looking to see who potentially may be carrying a concealed pistol. I'm looking for things like who's having problems, because if you're going to a restaurant, if you're going out to eat and you've spent the money on gasoline to get there, you certainly don't want to have any issues when you're out in public. And then the last thing I'm looking for is always the bathrooms. Since I've gotten a little older, I use those a little bit more frequently. So the other nice thing about most bathrooms are in restaurants, they no longer have windows. So it's a great place in any kind of case of inclement weather. Condition orange. So condition orange is when you feel like something has really kind of gone wrong. I usually equate this when I'm teaching any kind of personal protection classes, any dignitary protection, or any concealed pistol licenses. Condition orange is that kind of that spidey sense on the, that kind of like hair on the back of your neck standing up. And that's really kind of where you look at things and you think, oh my gosh, like this doesn't feel right. Something is wrong. You walk into a dark room and you get the heebie-jeebies. That's kind of what condition orange is to me. And that's how I really kind of think something, if you walk down a dark alley by yourself, and you should never do that. But if you happen to get caught in one of those situations, you're walking out of a building by yourself, and sometimes that can happen if you're working late or whatever. Condition orange is definitely one of those things that your senses are going up, something doesn't feel right, and you should pay extra special attention, and you should potentially be ready for a bad situation to arise, okay? The last color code is condition red, and this is the one that I kind of call Black Hawk Down. So if you've ever seen the movie Black Hawk Down, it was one of the worst tragedies the U.S. Army has ever kind of faced, and it was everything just kind of went wrong, and they weren't expecting it, and there were a lot of other things that kind of kept popping up. So when I think of condition red, I think of there are three things that you can truly try and do. In condition red, you can try and escape quickly if you have the means and you have the ability to escape quickly. Some people can't run very fast, and so if you can't, or your cardio isn't up to where it really truly needs to be, then that may not be necessarily an option. You can try and defend your position, and you can also try and issue commands, as well as using any kind of a tool that you may have at your disposal. Now, I realize that as a federal employee, there are certain limitations on things that you can and cannot bring into the building. And so I've kind of gone a little bit further in the next couple of slides to have some of those things ready and available for you, okay? So again, gaining those crucial seconds. This is where most people lack the basic understanding of trying to keep that conscious bubble around you. So again, if you're using all of the tools, tips, and tricks that you're going to learn from this little PowerPoint, your peripheral vision is also one of those things. It's not only out to your sides, but it's also behind you, right? So a lot of attacks happen from behind you. Somebody comes up and grabs you or whatever. There are a couple little things that you can do. Number one, if you're walking by any kind of a glass structure, any kind of glass, glance at the glass every once in a while and kind of get a good check of your six. For those of us who lived through this whole COVID thing, right? Everybody kind of has this little lingering cough, or some of us have this little lingering cough. So here's a little thing that you can do to kind of increase your peripheral vision out to your sides. So if you put your arms out just like this, right? Looking straight ahead, you'll notice if you wiggle your fingers, you can see that your peripheral vision is somewhere between 180 degrees and probably about 160 degrees. If you put your head or your chin down on your chest and you do that little conscious cough, right? You can see that your peripheral vision has greatly expanded. And so now you can see a little bit further behind you, 180 plus usually for most people. And it's a common thing for most people to cough. Make sure you cover your mouth. But it's a common thing to easily expand your peripheral vision. And then again, every once in a while, just check your blind spot, especially if you get that little orange or that spidey sense tingling and you're feeling like, man, I really need to check behind me. Do so. Don't wait until it's too late, okay? Again, gain those crucial seconds. If you've ever gone downtown at lunch and you've ever walked around in any of the parks, right, you'll see people doing the photo on the left all the time. And what they're doing is they're paying attention to their smartphone, or I call it stupid phone. Yes, I have one of those little things too, right here. And you really want to not get caught flat-footed. I'm going to give you guys an interesting case in point. My wife and I were going down to the farmer's market in Battle Creek. And she was driving. I was on my my smartphone and I was doing some text messaging, emailing, or something completely irrelevant. As soon as we stopped and we got into our parking spot, I began to open the door, and right there was a homeless person who literally greeted me at my own car door and was asking me for a couple dollars. Now, for most people, that would scare the hell out of you, and it scared the hell out of me. So one of those things that I would encourage you to do anytime you're pulling in somewhere to park and you happen to be on your cell phone, if you're talking or whatever else, or if you're distracted, or even if you're the passenger and you're distracted by this little device right here, put it down for a couple of seconds, scan the area, look for things that may look suspicious or slightly out of place. Take a couple of extra seconds. Don't get caught flat-footed. Okay. Other things to avoid are alleys and little shortcuts through fences, backyards, whatever else. Alleys are especially kind of notorious for having all kinds of bad things happen in there, especially in bigger cities. A lot of places, you know, cut down this alley, go to here, don't cut down the alley, stay with crowds, stay in well-lit areas. And again, try and, if you can, walk with crowds. If you think about this from a perspective, many of us have watched the National Geographic specials where the predator, the jackal, the hyena, right, are standing on the edge of the herd of whatever large meaty animal there is, and they're waiting for that one foolish animal to kind of wander off a little bit, and they're waiting for that foolish little animal to go over by the water or kind of limp away from the rest of the herd, and that's when they're going to pounce. Well, bad people, men and women, are very specifically looking for the exact same thing. So don't get caught flat-footed. Don't, if you're at a ball game, if you're baseball, football, basketball, or whatever else, and there's a large group of people, move with that large group of people, because bad guys are going to be less inclined to try and attack you. All right. Again, here's another great little instance, and this really applies to even your own safety walking around the Federal Center. I know there's tons of sharp 90-degree corners and angles. I'm kind of a bigger guy, and so what I like to do, if you look at this little diagram, is it's called slicing the pie, right? So in SWAT training, the wider swath that you can get from that corner allows you to see around there. So if you're walking down down some corridor, right, don't hug the walls, don't stay against the walls. Get away from those walls, because you never know when you may run into somebody, or somebody may be around the corner. Now, fortunately, the Federal Center is a very protected and a very safe place, but this also applies to outside. So another great story. We were all at a Detroit Tigers game, and I kept telling my father-in-law, Vince, get away from the buildings. And he's like, no, I want to avoid the crowds. And so he kept hugging the buildings all the way back from Tiger Stadium. And we were headed downtown to get something to eat, and he literally ran head to head, just like in this little video here. It wasn't anything malicious. The guy wasn't paying attention either, and he was hugging the wall, and so they collided head to head. They both fell down like two little dominoes or cartoon characters. I laughed for a couple seconds and then had to render aid. But had he followed my simple advice and got a wider breadth or a wider slice of pie as he went around that corner, he would have been able to easily see that there was somebody on the other side well in advance, that he could have done something like get offline or take a different path or recourse of action. Okay, so again, slicing that pie, it's not just a safety thing outside, but it's also a workplace safety inside. So if you're not hugging that wall, chances of you running head to head with somebody and bumping your head and having a couple days off work or falling or whatever else, minimize that. The biggest thing I can tell people is don't look like a victim. A couple years ago, I was downtown getting some coffee, and I noticed one of the local police officers down there was walking around with his stupid phone on, not paying attention to any of his surroundings, and he was in a very, very vulnerable spot. Told him, I said, look, this officer's now retired. I said, look, man, if you got to use your cell phone, get into a restaurant, tuck your back against some wall so that you can safely use your cell phone and not have to worry about somebody coming up from behind you. Now, granted, we're in Battle Creek, and the mean streets of Battle Creek really aren't that tough, but you never know when somebody's got some nefarious idea in their heart and they're planning on doing something because you look like an easy target. So this picture is a good representation of one of two things, and this will tell a lot about how your brain thinks about things, right? So if we were in a group of people and I walk by this person, my suspicion would be immediately high, or I would be in condition orange to red. And here's why. Number one, if you're sitting down and you're sitting on a curb, it's very difficult to stand up. Right? So automatically in a very bad position. Number two, the attire of this individual is not the normal attire of a normal person. Nobody wears an all black Dickies work shirt, Dickies work pants, and a Dickies work hat in a condition where it's cocked in a very weird manner. That's not right, right? So there's something obviously going on here. Upon a further review and investigation of this individual, you'll notice that on both arms, there are some tattoos that look like they've probably been done in probably a place with a couple of bars on some windows, bars on some doors. They look like jailhouse tattoos. So my suspicion is immediately up. I'm thinking that this person is probably a lookout looking for unsuspecting individuals who are not paying attention to him as he's texting his buddies, hey, look out. Now, the other way to look at this, right, and this is more of the victim standpoint of view is, oh, look at that person sitting down there vulnerable to an attack. So if you really want to be good, you'll start paying attention to people in your surroundings and think, is that normal for somebody to sit on the side of a curb on a fairly busy street in a fairly unsafe neighborhood, not paying attention to anything and on their smartphone? And the attire will start to be a telltale as well as some other signs or significant things about this person. Okay. So again, this is not necessarily a glass half full or glass half empty, but it's something you need to start paying attention. All right. Again, the biggest thing I can tell you to do, when I did some security consulting for churches, I would always tell them to harden their defenses. And really the easiest thing for them to do to harden their defenses, anytime somebody new or a stranger came around the church, they should automatically be slightly leery. But this is also a chance for them to kind of network and meet this person and greet them and treat thy fellow person as though they're thy brother, sister, or whatever else, right? So again, the big thing is meet and greet them, treat them fair and respectably, look them in the eyes. If you look somebody in the eyes, right, and this is a very primal thing again, right? Staring somebody in the eyes or looking at somebody in the eyes, not intently like you're on a date or whatever else, but just acknowledging their presence does a lot, right? It says, hey, I'm not afraid, I see you, I know where you're at. But looking down, especially to some of these predators or really, really bad people, sends a very, very easy message that you're willing to be taken because you're just afraid. You're going to stick your head in the sand. You're looking away from danger, right? That's an easy tell, right? And you can always tell in any kind of a fight if the person starts to look down or starts to look away, right? They're not going to really kind of engage and they're not really going to mix it up and they're not going to probably win the fight. So just a couple of really quick things. Again, I talked about earlier about observing your surroundings and paying attention, looking for things like entrances and exits, right? So the bad thing that we've noticed from all of these mass casualty situations, whether it's a fire, a mass active shooter or anything else like that, right? People got complacent. They forgot where entrances and exits were. They forgot to look for cover, concealment, barriers. Even something as simple as bathrooms, medical attention, right? If you're going to be in a pretty crowded place, like a concert, it's always important to note where medical staff and our emergency exits, just in case something goes wrong, right? Great White, one of my favorite bands, growing up, found that out the hard way, and people weren't paying attention. And as a result, there were a lot of really nice people that died. So again, these are all going to not looking like a victim and not acting like a victim. So basically, it's just, keep your head on a swivel, pay attention to things, entrances, exits, people who may be potentially threats. If you walk into some place and it doesn't feel like it's a good place, get out of there, leave, go somewhere else. There's tons of other places that'll take your money and provide you good service, but don't stick around in some place that you don't feel comfortable. When seconds count, right? So imagine there are three possible outcomes. The more time that you have to take any kind of an action, whether it's escape, get away, whether it's defend, or all out, just avoid the attack, right? And the other big thing is too, you also have to pay really, really good attention to the environment and what the person's wearing, right? So if it's July, like in this picture, let's just say this for a hot July night, and this has actually happened in my neighborhood. And I live in a good neighborhood, but we had this guy that was breaking into houses, and on a hot July evening, I actually caught him. He was actually wearing literally dark pants, a dark hooded sweatshirt, and a skull cap. Now in July, those are really not the weather appropriate things to wear, right? So that should have set off red flags to everybody, but it didn't. And he was riding a bicycle, so he was doing some physical exercise, so he would have been sweating even more, right? So just looking for odd things that don't really seem kind of right or in place or whatever else, right? So again, if you saw this person pop out at 100 yards or 100 feet, what would you do? At 50 feet, what would you do? And at 21 feet, what would you do? And these are all mental exercises you can do anywhere you are. Like you got a couple minutes on a break, right? If I come home and somebody's in my home, or if I go to the grocery store and somebody were to try and attack me, what would I do, right? How would I think about these things? And it's not being paranoid, it's just being prepared. And they're very different, right? again, the attack. And this is a great little mental image for anybody, right? You've got this nice person walking their dog, and you've got the wolves, jackals, or insert what other kind of predator you want to. And they're going to come at you kind of hard and fast because they want the idea of violence of action and surprise. And so the more you can prepare yourself for those kind of things and those kind of circumstances and those situations, the easier it's going to be for you to navigate, get through, and be okay on the other side, right? So again, the biggest thing that people fail to do, and the biggest thing that we've seen when people get attacked, the attacker is usually telling them to shut up, be quiet. And they want you to do that for a very specific reason. They know that if you start screaming, start yelling, start hollering, and start making all kinds of noise, their chances of success greatly diminish, right? Because people are going to start to hear that. We're in a condo right now. If I yell really loud, everybody in the condo complex is going to hear us. The other thing is too, is try and get away, break contact, anything that you can potentially do to break contact. I always tell people whenever I'm doing a women's self-defense class, I always tell people, be a savage for 30 seconds, right? Do everything humanly possible that you can. Bite, kick, scratch, punch, whatever you have to do. You're fighting for your freedom and potentially your life. So you're going to probably have to do some unsettling things that you wouldn't normally do as a civilized individual. But that's going to be potentially necessary to get away and make as much noise as you possibly can. So in some of these pictures, right, I've got a picture of Mike Tyson famously biting the ear. Again, if you're being attacked and that's all the person has given you, right? Hey, you know, you've got a good set of teeth. The government pays for some pretty good dentistry, right? Put those things to use. Again, punching, biting, kicking, clawing. If you've got nails, I don't have nails, but if you have any kind of nails, dig in, grab a hold and hold on. Don't submit and don't go quietly. And again, don't be a victim. If somebody's trying to shove you into a trunk, make that an impossible space for them to put you in. If somebody's trying to shove you in a van, make that an impossible space for them to put you in. Kick, punch, scratch, fight, scream your head off until your voice goes hoarse. Interesting case in point, right? So if you scream certain things, they're going to get a lot of attention quickly. Fire is one of them. Rape is another one that's going to get a lot of attention quickly. And so you just have to make yourself as unattractive to an attacker as humanly possible. And if they do think that they're going to grab you, again, yell, scream, kick, punch, do whatever you can to get away from them. I'm going to say this, and this is kind of morbid, but being involved in as many homicide investigations that I have been involved in with the local sheriff's department, being brought in as a firearms expert on several occasions, right? I always ask some really simple questions. What's underneath the fingernails? Is there any DNA? Did the person really try and fight back in any way, shape, or form? And those are always things that they look for. So if there's no other trace, you've now tied yourself potentially to whomever attacked you if something really, really bad happens. And I hate to say that to folks, but again, I'm trying to be realistic because, again, I'm trying to save your lives. Okay. So again, I know that the federal center is very restrictive about things that you can bring in there for obvious reasons, for safety. But there are some things that you guys are allowed to bring in to work every day that can be viable sources to prevent against attacks, right? So backpacks. So if you carry a backpack in, right, and it goes through the metal detector and you carry your laptop in there or whatever, your lunch or whatever else, right? Books, 3-ring binders, I don't know, whatever you guys carry in your backpacks, spare shoes, workout equipment, whatever, right? Backpacks can be a great source and a great swinging weapon. Keys are a really, really, really good weapon. They're sharp. There's usually people usually have more than one. If you've got one of those stupid new key fobs like I have, right, inside there is that emergency key. That's also another great tool that you can potentially use. Pens and pencils, right? Another overlooked thing. If you've ever wondered why law enforcement officers use those metal pens, and they're very specific to the kind of pen that they use, that's one of the big reasons, right? If it's a life or death situation, you've got to use any means necessary to be able to survive that kind of a violent attack. Also, ID cards, right? So most people underestimate or underrate the value of a sharp-sided ID card, right? A lot of those are pretty heavy-duty polymer or plastic, and can also be another weapon to be able to potentially use. Belts. Some people have fairly heavy belt buckles or even just regular belts. You can take that off and swing it. Mr. Ken, are you going to show us your giant rodeo belt buckle there, sir? There you go. Lanyards. Yeah, there you go. Good. Purses, satchels, I don't know, whatever else you may potentially carry, right? My wife carries a fairly large purse, and I was looking around for it. She's got some of my son's stuff in there. You know, she's, great mom, got all the accoutrement that needs to be in there. And so it's a pretty heavy object, right? I wouldn't want to carry that daggone thing around, but it's a great object to be able to swing at people and attack them with. And then the other thing too, and this was a thing that I got from a movie that I saw when I was a kid, right? Shoes are also great objects, especially if there's any kind of a heel on there. Those things are usually pretty sharp, and you can usually, use those in all kinds of different fashions. Talking about the old school movie, Single White Female, great movie if you've ever seen it, where the one gal used the heel of a shoe to fend off her attacker. So again, there's a lot of weapons at your disposal that you have here. Again, in the aftermath, after the attack, right, you need to think about a couple of things. You need to get to a safe place, a car or building, lock yourself in there, check yourself for injury. So I always use the method, like start at your head, immediately check for any kind of blood or anything else like that. Check your, the effects of adrenaline and endorphins are usually going to mask any kind of injury. So again, start checking head to toe. If you're with somebody else, make sure that you check them out and make sure that they double check you out. Call 911 immediately, tell them what happened. And just as kind of a note going all the way back to condition yellow or condition orange, if you're walking someplace and you feel or you see an unsavory character of any sort, you can always call 911 and have an officer come and check the area, do an area check. They're more than willing to do that, and they're more than willing to check you out. Most of your new cell phones also have a really interesting security feature where if you hit a couple of buttons simultaneously, they'll automatically call 911, start recording all of the interactions and put a GPS track and trace on those. There's a couple different cell phones that do that. It's part of an emergency safety feature on them. So I would advise you to get familiar with how to do that. And then again, be a good witness and document what happened, especially if the person runs away after you fended them off for whatever reason. You want to be able to, again, to document that, give a good description. A lot of times in traumatic situations, your brain will play some weird tricks on you. So again, as best as you possibly can, recall time, place, salute report, size, activity, location, unit, time, and equipment. Those are all good things to include in there when you're calling or talking to the police. At this point, I know that right at our time limit, and I didn't want to take up anybody else's time, but I did want to thank you. You can reach out to me in person or through social media at any time. We do all kinds of training for both civilians, federal contractors, as well as law enforcement agencies. And again, Martha, thank you so much for inviting me, and hopefully this was useful and beneficial to everybody.
Thank you, Chris.
Hey,
Really
Chris.
appreciate it. On the other hand, I need to check on my cell phone and be sure I know how to use it. To
Hey, Martha,
help with
again,
things
just
like
real quick before I drop. Hey, Chris, I want to thank you for doing this. And for
Thanks,
the rest
Phil.
of you on, know that Chris Walden has trained both myself and my wife. And if I trust anybody to train my wife, you can trust them too.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. Appreciate you, sir. And it's easy to train pretty willing and really good people. And she is one heck of a shot, as notated in the Air Force. So again, thank you guys so much. Anytime we can help, maybe in the future, we can get a couple of self-defense classes going up there through Martha. It'd be fun to do some basic how to break some wrist locks and some other really good stuff. So I guess if you're interested in that, if Martha wanted to coordinate that, we'd love to do that.
Thank you, Chris. Have
All
a
right.
wonderful day. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care, you guys. Thank you again. Be safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Megan Powell. She is a physical therapist from Armor Physical Therapy in Battle Creek. She graduated from her with her bachelor degree from Hope College in exercise science in 2018 and her doctorate in physical therapy from Central Michigan University in 2021. Megan is a member of the American Physical Therapy Association and has experience treating all age of patients with a variety of conditions, from post-surgical physical therapy care to neurological conditions like Parkinson's disease. She's going to be talking to us about wellness in the workplace. Without further ado, Megan Powell.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Martha, for that introduction. And sorry in advance if my video has cut out already or does cut out in the future. At least you can see my smiling face in this still. That's just technical difficulties that IT wasn't able to help me with. So welcome everyone to my presentation, Wellness in the Workplace, Reducing Pain and Improving Function. As Martha said, I'm a PT at Armor Physical Therapy, and I am happy to answer any questions as they pop up in chat, or if you'd prefer to email me, my email is included in this slide. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have or see if there's something else I might be able to help with. Obviously, if you're really concerned about something, talk to your doctor. But as we said, in the workplace, let's get going. So my objectives with today's PowerPoint, today's presentation is one, that you learn how to modify your ergonomics and body mechanics in your workplace to reduce your risk of injury or even soreness, stress on your body, and maintain wellness while you're working. To learn stretches for commonly tight muscles that you can perform in the office. And 3, to learn exercises to maintain wellness and improve your attentiveness throughout the workday. Because as I know, as I'm sure you know, sitting at a computer all day can get kind of exhausting. So we'll talk about some ways to manage that and how to keep moving and keep ourselves awake and active and alert. So ergonomics, we'll start with setting up your work environment. I'm sure some of you have seen diagrams similar to the one that's on the slide here, but they are ways to adapt your work environment to meet your needs. So starting at the desk, we want your desk to be at a level where your arms can rest on it evenly. So your keyboard or desk is level with your elbows, where your monitor is at or just below your gaze level so that you don't have to crane your neck up to look at your monitor or lower your neck down. And sometimes that involves like moving your chair up and down as well. Now, as some people who are short like me know, having your feet flat on the floor can be a little tricky if your chair does have to be a little higher. Perhaps your desk doesn't move up or down. So finding a small step stool or even a couple of books with like a towel over top to support your feet and give you some good posture while you're sitting is going to be beneficial to maintain stability of your core. Have, like on the right side of that diagram there, nice upright posture with good back support instead of feeling to have to be way high up in your chair or way forward to get your feet on the floor. And these modifications don't just apply in sitting, but whether you're standing at your desk or sitting at your desk, having that desk at a good level for you to maintain an upright posture instead of having to hunch over is going to be beneficial. And then for your mouse and keyboard specifically, I know I have had some experience with like carpal tunnel, that sort of thing, whether you get numbness or tingling in your hands or whether your wrists just get tired throughout the day. Having some support under your wrists is key. If your keyboard is really flat, that might not be needed for you. But if your keyboard is like raised up and you find your hands pointing down to reach your keyboard or up to reach your keyboard so that there's stress on your wrists, having a rolled up towel or even a little cushion underneath can help provide some cushion to the tendons, the nerves on the bottom side of your wrist beneath your palm that will be beneficial and help your wrists from straining themselves, keep you working, keep you able to type, to do all of your work throughout the day. You also want your keyboard and your mouse to be close enough to you to use without reaching far across the table. The more that you need to move your arm out in front of you or out to the side in order to move your mouse, the more strain you're going to put on your shoulder. And if you have to use your mouse or your keyboard very consistently and your shoulders are working hard to move your arms out in front of you, out to the side, that is going to stress your shoulders more than they need to be stressed. So in order to work efficiently, work smarter, not harder, as they say, keeping things close enough to you to use without having to reach out is going to be super beneficial. And I talked a little bit earlier about standing or sitting. Obviously, standing desks are becoming more popular, and while I may not be able to tell you, oh yeah, go ahead and get a standing desk, that's going to be your workplace's decision as to whether that's a possibility or not. Which one is better for you is kind of going to depend. Well, standing keeps your blood flowing and has a little less pressure on your back. You can, shift around, move. Sitting allows you to relax a little bit. And if, you have bad knees, if your ankles hurt, if your hips are bothering you, sitting might be a little bit better for you just to take a little pressure off. So listen to your body, see which one feels better if you have the choice to do one or the other, and find out what works best for you. You can always give it a try. Now, throughout the workday, whether you're working 8 hours or 10 hours or even just 4 hours, there are two parts of us that can get strained: our eyes and the rest of our bodies. And I divide them that way for reasons we'll get into. But we as human beings are meant to move. That's kind of the push for physical therapy too, is we want to keep you moving. As my professors used to say, motion is lotion. So the more you move, the more you're going to keep moving and the more your body is going to want to move. So for your eyes, going around, looking around just one screen for a lot of the day is going to be stressful on your eyes. We have two sorts of vision: close-up vision, right, and distance vision. And that's usually what they test for at the optometrist when you're getting glasses or something. But our eyes are meant to use both of those kinds of vision. With our monitors being so close to us for most of the day, or even our phones being so close to us for most of the day, it's tricky to kind of integrate some of that distance vision into our daily routines. But one rule to think of in order to reduce some eye strain, especially if you're like getting headaches or your eyes are getting fatigued, is that 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes for 20 seconds, you're going to look at something 20 feet away. It can just be a point on the wall. It could be your friend a few cubicles over. It could be the water cooler. It doesn't really matter what. It doesn't matter if it's moving or stationary, but just to give your eyes a bit of a break from looking at something all close up, that's going to help reduce that eye strain and allow you to get through the rest of your day without getting fatigued, having headaches come on. Not a surefire way to eliminate them completely, but definitely something to help that I've used myself. And then as far as our body goes, getting tired throughout the day, since we're meant to move, our bodies need that blood to keep flowing. So every hour, I generally suggest to people, especially if they're getting stiff throughout the day, if they're like, wow, my hips are just aching, is get up, walk a couple of laps around your cubicle, walk a couple of laps around your office. It doesn't have to be any more than a minute or two, but if you get your blood flowing and you get some newly oxygenated blood to your brain and to your legs and to your arms, just once every hour throughout the day, you are going to feel so much better when you come back and sit down. You're kind of distancing yourself from work for just a moment, giving your brain a break, giving your body a break. And then when you come back and sit down, you're a new person. Maybe that's a little out there, but you're a new person. You can also take 2 minutes for a quick stretch, just like 20 to 30 seconds of 2 different stretches on each side, whether that's your arms, your back, your legs, or 2 to 3 strengthening exercises. And we'll go through some in the next several slides that you can do to anytime throughout your workday. One disclaimer before we get to those stretches and strengthening exercises, though, is that while I'm a health professional, I cannot account for every single person's health conditions or limitations. So all of the exercises that I'm giving you today are some guidance to promote a healthier lifestyle. So if you're concerned about something specific to your health, follow up with your primary care doctor, follow up on my chart or something like that. Because they are going to be able to tell you like, oh yeah, that does sound like a good idea, or oh, maybe just avoid that for X, Y, and Z reasons. They're going to be the ones who are the most informed about your health. So we'll start with stretching, and stretches we want to hold for 30 to 60 seconds. Ballistic stretching, or like the bouncing into it and out of it, can feel really good and as actually a great warm up for muscles, but research studies show that holding low loads, so really gentle stretching for a long duration, that 30 to 60 seconds at a time, is going to help lengthen those muscles more efficiently. And if you only have a couple of minutes to stretch, or if you're trying to get something done but need a break to just like work some tension out of your hips, work some tension out of your shoulders throughout the workday, you want to maximize your use of time as best as possible. There's 4 areas of stretching that we are going to look at on the next few slides. First, we'll start with neck and back stretches. Go ahead and do these with me as we talk about them if you want to kind of get a feel for them in your body. So the first is neck rolls. You can start at one side, go to the other side, and then tip forward and around, or back and around, just to move your neck through its maximal range of motion. Again, I don't want these to be aggressive stretches. So you're just going to go as far as you can comfortably, feeling a bit of a pull on the opposite side you're going to, and working your head around in a circle, one way or the other. Even doing a deep nod, just bringing your chin to your chest, or even going side to side and getting that head to move is going to be beneficial. For your back specifically, a backward arch is a fantastic way to combat some of the hunching forward that we tend to do at our computers. Our society is really set up for leaning forward a lot of the time and having a forward curve of our back, whether that's driving, sitting and eating, sitting on the couch and watching TV, or sitting at work. And so one way to combat that, or to reverse that curve, as we say in PT, is the backward arch, or more officially, thoracic extension. And in order to get that, you can cross your arms over your chest, you can cross your arms behind your head, and you are just going to lean backward until you feel a stretch, like you're looking up at the ceiling. You should feel it somewhere in your mid back, but if you're starting to feel it in your low back, go ahead and just go a little less. Or if it starts to feel like too aggressive, just don't go as far. It should be gentle. It should be a nice motion that you can go into and feel some relief. And if 30 to 60 seconds is too much at the beginning for this one, you can always go for like 5 to 10, and work your way up to a longer period of time. Going the other way, or lengthening our spine upward and outward, one of my favorite ways to do this is to hold on to something stable with your hands. So whether that is a staircase, a desk, a really heavy filing cabinet, something that you can just get your hands onto. And then you are going to lean forward, letting your arms pull forward, letting your hips pull you back, and you'll feel lengthening along the sides of your back up towards your shoulders, and sometimes all the way down in the base of your spine. It's a great way to stretch out those lats, a great way to stretch out your thoracic, the middle of your back, and your lumbar spine down at the bottom. Next up, we have some hip and leg stretches. And I wanted to go all the way from the hip down to the calves and ankles. So hip flexor stretch. Our flexors are the muscles on the front of our hips. One super easy stretch is standing in front of a chair, like is shown on the upper left picture, setting your toes on top of the chair and then pushing it backwards so that you lengthen at the hip in order to stretch the front of your leg. You may not be able to get your leg quite as far back as that young man there, but that's okay. If you get your hips up or your toes up and you feel a stretch across the front of your hip, the front of your thigh down towards your knee, you're doing that stretch right. If you feel like you need to go a little bit farther, you can always lean back. You can maybe hold on to something and push your hips forward. But any way that you can feel this stretch, A+. If your knees find it difficult to bend quite so far, a step stool or like a low shelf might be a better way to stretch out your hip flexor like that. Just anything you can get your toes up onto in order to lengthen that front side of your body. Now for hip extensors, the muscles on the back or your glutes, one way you can do this is cross your ankles over each other or cross your knees over each other. Sit up as tall as you can and lean forward. You should feel a stretch across the back of your hip or the back of your leg. You might feel it pretty intensely and it might be nice and gentle, but we don't have a chance to actively stretch those out if our jobs aren't active. And so maintaining some mobility there is going to be beneficial. And when you're doing stretches, be sure to do them on both sides. We always like to keep some balance between. So right side and left side. One might feel more tight than the other, and that's okay. We all have some differences in our bodies that need to be accounted for. So just take your time, do what feels good for those. Now for a calf stretch, this one might be a little more familiar to you all. Just get into a lunge. Get your hands up on the wall, brace yourself, and you can do this in really any shoes you want, but if you have heels, you might want to kick them off just so that you can get your heel all the way to the ground. This is a way to stretch the back side of our ankles. And you have two muscles that are back there, one that connects up past your knee that we stretch with the knee straight, and one that only goes from the middle of your calf down to your ankle that is better stretched with your knee bent. If you try it out, lunging with your knee straight in the back or lunging with your knee bent in the back, you'll be able to feel that stretch kind of shift from maybe a little higher on your calf to a little lower. And then last but not least, for the hip and the leg, ankle rolls, just circling your feet like you're drawing circles in the air with your toes, either direction. You can go as far as you need to feel a stretch, or just to keep your ankles moving if you're sitting at your desk for a while and can't make it up to walk around. Our next section of stretches is shoulder stretches. These don't have as many words on this slide because they're a little more self-explanatory, but again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We have our classic overhead stretch where you lace your fingers over your head and push up above you. You can have your hands toward the ceiling or your hands towards your head, but all you're thinking about is trying to reach up as high as you can so that you're stretching top, back, underneath your shoulder. If this one is uncomfortable, you can also reach your hands out in front of you and stretch forward, palms facing away from you or palms facing towards you. Next, down from that one is the behind the head reach. This is a tricky position for some people to get into, but if it's comfortable for you, a good way to stretch your triceps is to get your arm just behind your head and then reach down towards your back. Sometimes you don't even need your other hand to help. You feel that stretch just with your hand reaching. If this muscle or if this stretch is too much on your muscles or on your joints, you can always just have your hand in front of you, do that cross body reach like is shown on the bottom right here. So that's where you cross your arm across your body and you can have it down by your waist or up by your shoulders. But you reach across with one hand, have your other hand up by your elbow to provide some pressure, like you're doing a bicep curl almost, to stretch the outside of your arm and underside of your arm to keep those shoulders limber. And last but not least, something you can do anytime in the office, whether you're standing or sitting or wherever, is some shoulder circles going in both directions. So you can roll your shoulders up and around and back, or up and around and forward. You can do both. You can do either. You can switch directions. Some people do experience some clicking and popping in their shoulders. You might be one of them. The general rule for me is that if something isn't causing you pain, if you're not feeling a sharp stabbing pain with these, go ahead and do it. You might feel a little bit of a stretch in the front of your chest. You might feel a little bit of tightness in your back that you're trying to work out. My shoulders pop and click a lot too. My fiance likes to say I sound like a Rice Krispie treat. But moving your shoulders through that range of motion is not going to be detrimental if it's not causing you pain, right? So just give it a try. See how it feels, stretch it out, stay well. So last but not least, we have some wrist stretches, and these are a little simpler, but you want to be able to stretch your wrists so that your palm is going toward your forearm and your palm is going away from your forearm. So one easy way to do this is a prayer stretch shown here on the far left. That's where you have your hands together in front of you, and then you press down until you feel a stretch across your wrists, your hands, maybe even up towards your elbows. Again, you just hold it for 30 to 60 seconds and then you relax. Just super gentle. And then the other direction that you can stretch your hands is shown in the second picture with your palms kind of going towards your forearm. And you can do this on a desk or a table. Sometimes that's a little hard on your knuckles. So you can also do a variation like in the picture on the far right. He is doing a stretch where his palm is out and away from him, but you can also flip your hand over, like in that second picture, that middle picture, so that your palm is towards you in order to stretch the muscles on the opposite side of your wrist and your forearm. These muscles can often get tight while typing or while working on a mouse all day. And so keeping them limber, or even just moving your arms through your wrists through that range of motion can help keep those limber, keep the blood flowing, and change it up so that they don't get too fatigued. And then the second part of our exercises, strengthening. For the hips, we have just some squats in the office. They don't have to be deep. They can just be some squats down towards your chair and back up again to get some knees and hips firing. Lifting your leg up and out to the side is another super easy one. You don't have to lift it high. You just have to kick your leg out to the side, feel your glutes working. We don't use our legs out to the side very often. We more primarily walk forward and backward if we need to. But these muscles on the side of our hips are fantastic stabilizers. And so lifting them up and out to the side is going to be beneficial. For strengthening our shoulders, there's some really easy ones to do. You can do some push-ups on the wall. Certainly don't have to get all the way to the ground to do a push-up, but you're still working the pec muscles in the front of your body, your triceps behind you, in order to push out and away from the wall and lower yourself back down nice and controlled. Speaking of the triceps, you can do tricep dips on like a low bench or a chair if you have one, or even if you have arms on your chair, you can kind of push up on the arms, lower yourself down on those, and repeat. The top right shoulder squeezes is one that I suggest for everybody. Again, we like to curl our shoulders forward when we sit at our computers, so squeezing together and back in order to stretch out the front of that chest is going to be great to help reverse that curve, as we say. And then another super easy one you can do if you're talking to someone or if you're on a phone call is some bicep curls. Keep your arm moving, work that bicep, get a little bit of strengthening in as you are thinking about drinking your water, just because she has a water bottle. And then last but not least is some wrist strengthening. Lifting the palm up and down is going to be beneficial to strengthen those muscles in your forearm that you need to use for typing, moving your mouse, that sort of thing. Or flipping your hand over, which is not pictured here, but having your palm facing the ground and lifting your knuckles up and down is going to be beneficial. I wrote in here, you can do this with or without weight. Some people will feel it after 15 to 20 reps, even without weight, and that's okay. We all have different levels of strength. Not all of us are rock climbers. So go to your comfort level. Something light that you might be able to lift is your mouse. You'd be able to lift and lower your mouse, or lift and lower a couple of granola bars, a water bottle, something like that. And then last but not least, for the wrist exercises is twisting your arm. So as shown in the picture, you have your palm facing up and then you twist your arm so that your palm is facing down, and then twist it back so that your palm is facing up. And most of that motion is coming from your elbow, but it strengthens those muscles, your supinator, we call it, and your bicep, part of your bicep, in order to strengthen like a 3D multiplanar motion of your wrist. And all of that said, really what we're looking for here with these stretches, with this strengthening, with looking away from your computer for a moment, or with getting up and walking around, is to get moving. Like I said before, our phrase that we use is motion is lotion, but everybody, regardless of your activity level, regardless of your strength, regardless of how flexible you feel you are, you can get moving, and you can take a couple of minutes a day to give yourself some TLC, to help yourself feel better, to help yourself stay motivated, and to keep your brain and your body fresh and active throughout the day, especially if it's really long or something like that. So that is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, as I said, I am absolutely happy to be able to answer those via email. Again, my email is megan.powell@armorpt.com. And thank you so much, Martha, for inviting me to come here and share some tips and tricks on wellness.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming over. Those stretches felt amazing. I'm just letting you know. I was doing them here and like, oh, awesome.
So glad to hear it.
Sometimes we sit for too long and then we forget that we need to walk around or walk away for a little bit.
It's really easy to get caught up in what you're doing and not think about it.
I understand that. Well, Megan, I really appreciate you. Thank you very much. And again, if the presentations are going to be posted in the MWR webpage. And if you have any questions or would like Megan information, please shoot me an email, martha.kearns@DLA, and I'll be sure to send you back the information from Megan. Thank you, Megan, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I really appreciate you.
Thanks.
Yes, the electrical field theory, it's really, really interesting. We are all kind of energy related. We all have energy. So I think it's really, really important to realize new options, not just, medication as medication. So, well, thank you. I think the 30-minute sessions are really good too, as well. It give us an opportunity to listen to a very good good time for some food for thought. And I really appreciate all of you participating and keeping with us on all these presenters. Again, if you have any suggestions on other presenters you would like to see, or some other information you would like to have about, upcoming Lunch and Learns, I really appreciate you guys here. Yes, the healing rocks are really, really fun. Somebody told me that fitness centers is open. We have been open for since a year ago, from 6 in the morning till 1300 hours of 1 o'clock, Monday to Friday. The locker rooms and the saunas are open. Well, I guess this will conclude our fair, our health fair. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope that it was informational. Again, if you have any questions or you'd like more information about some of the speakers, shoot me an email, martha.kearns@dla.mil, and I'll be sure to send you the information you are requesting. Again, I really appreciate everybody. And so thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate you coming in, and I hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you for your participation and have a great day.